What's up, FA Nation? It is Tuesday, the morning after Monday Night Football. So what does that mean? That means we have an edition of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk, where we're going to talk about Monday Night Football and all the waiver wire ads you need to make this week. I'm Jen Piacenti, and I'm joined by none other than our fantastic, brilliant, awesome managing editor, and I'm not even going overboard here, Jon and Pemba. Jon,
those are the nicest
going
words
on?
anybody's ever said about me, Jen. So I appreciate all the compliments. It was an interesting week for me. It seems like every week has been an interesting week in the NFL, but this week especially, everything going on with COVID, then more injuries happening to star running backs over the weekend. I mean, it seems like 2020 continues to be a tractor pull, no matter what we're talking about, and here we are with the NFL season.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, right now we have so much sports going on. I just want to take a moment to reflect and be like, as frustrating as it has been, as much as we had to scramble for Kansas City and Pittsburgh and not knowing what to go on, we have 4 baseball games going on today. We have NBA playoffs. We have NFL. We have so much sports, and there was such a long time when we didn't have any of it. So we just have to take a moment to pause and be like, you know what? It may be a little different, but at least we've got it, and it's exciting. Lots of upsets happening everywhere, including the Panthers beating Arizona.
Yeah, I know.
All kinds of cool stuff. So let's actually.
The Eagles won a game,
The Eagles won a game against San Francisco.
I think they lead the NFC East now with a 1-2-1 record. So
unbelievable. And I think Kyle Shanahan actually rage benched a quarterback. I think that happened.
Yeah, I think that happened too. Yeah, you got Driscoll in there out of nowhere for no real reason. So
yeah, just crazy stuff. So let's review what happened last night. So as everybody knows, the Kansas City Chiefs and Patriots game was rescheduled. It did play last night. However, it played without Cam Newton. And I think it's pretty safe to say it looks like New England does need Cam Newton. What is your read on this, Jon? And moving forward, do you think we can trust either one of these quarterbacks? I mean, we did see New England do a great job defensively. They did limit Kansas City, but if they can't get the offense moving, what can we expect? And should we expect it from Caleb Hoyer? Should we expect it from Jarrett Stidham? Should we expect it from Damien Harris?
Yeah, I mean, everything that we're hearing is that Newton is asymptomatic and could actually play this week. He just has to, the league protocol is if you're asymptomatic, you have to pass consecutive COVID tests within 24 hours. Of each other. So there's a chance that Newton could actually suit up this week against Denver. As a Patriots fan, I would much rather see Stidham out there and let him have an opportunity to see what he can do. We know what Brian Hoyer is. He's been in the league for 12 years. What we saw last night is a reason why he's a career backup. His inability to manage the clock was something I basically haven't seen in my time following the Patriots. Tom Brady, early Drew Bledsoe, like all those guys, were strong quarterbacks, and seeing him mismanage and turn the ball over the way he did was not something I was accustomed to. So we know what Brian Hoyer is. And yes, Stidham came in and he threw 2 picks. One of them wasn't his fault. Edelman just didn't catch that football, popped up right behind him, went the other way. But I think he showed his strong arm. I mean, he was basically, wrist flicking balls downfield, that deep throw that got the PI on Honey Badger there against Harry. And then he did the nice corner fade to Harry in the end zone. I thought both of those were good throws. So I'd like to at least see him get the start this week in Denver if that's the way it ends up going.
Yeah, and let's talk about what they're going to do with their ground game. If there is no Cam Newton, are we to trust Damien Harris? I mean, he absolutely broke out 100 yards, 17 attempts. He wasn't really involved in the passing game, so maybe it depends on game script, but I think usually we do expect the Patriots to not be that far behind. So moving forward, how would you address this backfield? Rex Burkhead had a bigger day than James White. A lot of people expected James White to have that day. So are you staying away from it, or are you willing to go in?
No, so I mean, there was a lot of really positive talk about Damien Harris during camp coming into the season. Then he broke his finger, had surgery, had to land on IR, and kind of put all that on pause. I think he's still going to be probably the early down back to own. I still think Rex Burkhead could find his way 7 to 10 carries a game because he's sort of the tweener back between White and Harris. And Harris proved that he's capable of catching the football a little bit too, based off reports out of camp. But I think what you're going to see is sort of Burkhead be the change of pace guy. James White can resume his role as that third down pass catcher. And a lot of the early down work is going to go to Damien Harris. So to me, Michel's probably getting cut out. I know he's on IR now with a quad injury. If he comes back, we'll see how the backfield works. And then, but for now, I think you have to kind of trust Damien Harris. Plus, it's a positive knowing that when Cam Newton does come back, the offense was leading the league in rushing until the Browns ran all over the place the other day. So, this is a team that's going to be very run heavy moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, over on the Kansas City side, and I kind of asked you this question last week, but it bears asking again. Is Patrick Mahomes a bust as far as fantasy is concerned, as far as where people were taking him? People were often taking Patrick Mahomes in the first round, and he put up, like in standard leagues, 23 points last night? Yeah. Not really that impressive. Threw for 2 touchdowns, 236 yards. I mean, certainly not a bad performance, but the kind of performance you'd expect from a Kirk Cousins, right? I mean, not from Patrick Mahomes.
Right. So, I mean, the one thing I would have to say with that is the Patriots actually do typically play pretty solid defense against Mahomes. If you look at their matchups in years past, they've done a good job at holding them down. I think I saw today, there was a stat on Twitter, of the recent low-scoring games with Mahomes under center, the Patriots have held those Chiefs to 2 of their worst 5 scoring games or something like that, keeping them off the field, out of the end zone. So their defense is strong. They know how to cover. They have a lot of fast corners that can run, with Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman down the field, and they're really strong covering tight ends. Travis Kelce led their team in receiving last night. He only had 3 catches. So, testament to New England's defense. But like you said, and this is a reason why we talked a lot about waiting on taking quarterbacks. You took Lamar Jackson round 2. You took Mahomes round 2, round 3. You're not getting the upside production that you were hoping for. Now, obviously, last week, Mahomes came through. He had the huge touchdown game. But you're looking at pretty consistently guys like Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray, you have Russell Wilson, all those guys that were sort of in the Josh Allen, 6 to 8, 9 round picks, and they're basically playing at that same level. So, those of you who started off maybe taking a running back that could be injured, Barkley or McCaffrey, then with Mahomes or Lamar, you're probably kicking yourself right now, missing out on some players because you could have used that pick on a skill position player to help you out with some depth. So I was never in the camp of taking a quarterback early. I did obviously in a few best balls because I stacked like the Chiefs offense, and that's, best ball, that's what you kind of want to go for. But in standard or redraft leagues, I wasn't really going that route.
Yeah, and speaking of injuries, there are so many. And another first rounder that is injured is Devonte Adams. So jumping over to the Green Bay game, we saw Aaron Rodgers just unload again. He's just been a phenomenal. I mean, I think at this point, maybe he's in the MVP conversation, right?
Yeah.
And it seemed that his favorite receiver Aaron Rodgers, I'm sorry. I'm going to talk about Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones has had a really good game, too. We can easily talk about him. That's fine.
We got to talk about that, too, in a second. But Aaron Rodgers seemed to have eyes for Robert Tonyan. This is a guy who was on nobody's radar 2 weeks ago. And suddenly, when Aaron Rodgers decides he likes somebody, I mean, it's pretty big deal.
I thought there was always this narrative that Aaron Rodgers didn't throw to the tight end, and all of a sudden Robert Tonyan's got 5 touchdowns over the last handful of weeks. His 5 touchdown catches. He only has 13 catches on the year. So, right. More than, about half his touchdown passes or half his catches are going for scores. So, hard to argue with that production, though. And like you said, the increase in snap counts, increase in usage. He's got 11 catches on 11 targets the last 2 weeks for 4 scores. So, yeah, Rodgers is using what he has at his disposal. Now, it seemed like Devonte Adams wanted to play last night. I'm not sure if you saw his tweet during the middle of the day, which he ultimately deleted, basically saying, apparently he doesn't know his body as well as others. It seems like the medical staff was ruling him out and Adams is ready to go. So that being said, I think Devonte Adams is going to be good to go this upcoming week. It seemed like he was ready to play. And then what's that going to do to the target share for Tonyan? We'll have to wait and see. Does it impact Valdez Scantling more? Does it impact some of the other guys that they had there, Shepard? And then there was, I'm blanking on the name because they have so many randoms that scored a touchdown for them last night as well. But, I think once Adams comes back, the target share is going to be more focused, and we'll see exactly how that goes.
Yeah, and so one thing I do want to talk about is with Devonte Adams being out, I think we all kind of thought, well, this is definitely going to be an Aaron Jones game. And personally, I was up against Howard Bender. He was up going into the game. I had Aaron Jones still to go. I was excited. He had MVS. So I knew it was a long shot. I ended up losing by only 3.5 points because of Jamal Williams, as Howard calls him. So Can you explain, like, what is going on? Were they just trying to protect Aaron Jones because everybody's being so injured? Are they just trying to see what Jamal Williams can do?
Jamal Williams is part of their offense. The problem is, he is a capable pass catcher. He's their change of pace back. And we've seen LaFleur at times, and even before LaFleur, they like to get Jamal Williams, series. For whatever reason, Aaron Jones is on the sideline and Jamal Williams is getting 1-2 straight series of touches. And you're like, oh man, is Jones hurt? What's going on? But there's a reason why, if you look at his carry numbers last year, I don't think he cracked 200. And the reason for that is because they use Jamal Williams as often as they do. So, it's or not over 250 or whatever it was carries last year. So they use them so often that it cuts into Jones's playing time. I unfortunately actually lost a matchup waiting a stat correction because I lost by 0.7 because the person ended up losing Derrick Henry had to pick up Jamal Williams and started him, and then Williams almost gets 100 yards receiving, and I lose by 0.6. So that was kind of frustrating. But the one thing I want to say about Aaron Jones is everybody was down on him coming into this year because they thought there was no way he could repeat the touchdown production from last year. He had 19 touchdowns last year. We thought that it was, impossible to repeat. Yet he finds himself now on track to exceed that touchdown mark from last year. So right now he's on pace for 26 total touchdowns. So everybody thought there was touchdown regression coming. It's the exact opposite. He's actually on pace to score more touchdowns this year.
I am very happy with the share of Aaron Jones I have, even though I lost by 3.5 points last night to Howard Bender. It's okay. I'm going to come out on top. I feel confident. Well, let's jump to the other side of this game. What a mess. Just what a mess. Atlanta is a
goose egg.
Yeah, where was Calvin Ridley? I mean, that's the number one question, right? Because I'm over here playing my FanDuel lineups, and I'm like, all right, Ridley's going to play. I've got Tanya in, I'm feeling good. I've got Aaron Rodgers in the MVP. I'm feeling good. And then Ridley gives me a goose egg. It's like he didn't even show up. And he wasn't even really very targeted. Five targets. Top targeted receiver was Zacchaeus with 86 yards. What is going on? I mean, I think right now we can already see the writings on the wall for Julio Jones. This is probably, he's getting older. He's going, to deteriorate a little bit. He's still going to be a very good fantasy receiver, but maybe not what we expected before. But now should we be worried about Ridley, or should we just chalk this up to like, hey, everybody has a bad week?
So, I mean, both Ridley and Jones were on the injury report heading into this game.
Right.
So maybe Ridley is just dealing with some injuries of his own.
Feeling good.
5 targets, so he was on the field. But we saw this in week 2 out of Julio, where he tried to play through the injury. He was basically just as a decoy out there. And then he missed week 3, tried to play last week, yesterday, got hurt again. Now he's definitely not going to play next week in week 5. And from what I'm hearing or reading on Twitter, rather, they're going to probably hold him out. I hope they keep him out for 2 weeks. Obviously, 1 week isn't enough for this hamstring to heal. And I'm not ready to say that he's just like getting washed up or old or he's aging, because in week 1 he had a humongous performance. He had like 150 yards receiving. So the injuries are just keeping him down. Atlanta needs to let him rest, get fully healthy. It's terrible for a fantasy owner like myself that has Julio Jones, knowing that he's not going to be in the lineup. But I also can't risk now having to play him, and then he only plays half a game, because that's hurting me even more. So, he's probably not going to play this week. He should sit out next week and hope that hamstring heals. We'll find out more if Calvin Ridley was injured or dealing with more of a serious injury than they let on. A popular video being shown today across Twitter is Ridley being open in the end zone, and Ryan just wasn't even looking at him. He was kind of running away from the play. The play was sort of moving right, and Ridley sort of went to the back corner of the opposite side. So while he was open, the movement of the play wasn't going in that direction. So I don't even really count that as like a missed opportunity. It doesn't seem like Ryan was ever looking at him as a top option. So Yeah, frustrating to say the least. The only person you'd be happy with having yesterday was Todd Gurley if you're, had somebody on the Falcons.
Yeah, and again, Todd Gurley, the 2 touchdowns, but not a lot of rushing yards. Right. They're using him in short yards. He's not a beast, if you will. He is getting the touchdowns, which is nice for your fantasy points, but just a very.
They're using him how I expected him to use him. I said last going into this year, why wouldn't he be capable of putting up what he did last season? With the Rams, with the Rams there. It was like 850 yards and 10 plus touchdowns. Right now he's on pace for 1,000 yards and 16 scores. Again, that's just the multiply throughout 16 game average. We'll see if he can keep that up. But I mean, if he goes and rushes for 900 and gives you 12 touchdowns, I think you're going to be more than happy with where you drafted him. And they're being smart about where they're using him. They're limiting his overall touches, and he's scoring in the red zone, which is why I really thought they brought him in. Atlanta last year was like 25th or 26th in red zone scoring, while Todd Gurley was one of the more efficient red zone runners last season. So it felt like they were a great match for them. And so far, when they do get in that red zone, he's scoring. So I'm still high on Gurley if you're able to at least set the correct expectations for him.
Right. I think that's what it is. But one thing that we didn't expect is for this to be the under. We all know that Falcons defense stinks. We've seen it over and over again. But usually they still have this, fantastic offense that comes out and puts out a lot of points and fights back. We did not see that last night. What is the state of the Falcons organization right now? Like, we just saw a major change happen in Houston. Is this going to happen in Atlanta?
I mean, it should happen in a few different places. It should happen in Atlanta. I think it should happen in Detroit. There are some teams that just have some awful play calling going on right now where I'm just like scratching my head. I was one that was invested in the Lions game. They were down 21 in the third quarter, and I saw them run 3 straight times. Why are you running the football 3 plays in a row down 21 in the third quarter against a team that had a secondary that was missing half their players? The play calling in this league blows my mind. We saw with the Texans in week 1 the same thing. The Chiefs were up on them by, I think it was 14 points or 21 points, and they were running draw plays at Duke Johnson. I'm like, you got to be throwing the football in these situations. So I'm seeing a lot of that across the league, and I'm just wondering what is going on. It's a passing league. Throw the football. So, yeah, I mean, Atlanta, there's something not clicking with them, right? Like, they have the talent. I know the receivers are injured. Their defense isn't really getting it done, and their offense seems to now be stifled a little bit. We've seen Dan Quinn, not really, since that Super Bowl, when they made the coaching change, Atlanta's been terrible. So they gotta figure something out there. I think coaching changes are going to be abundant as the season moves along.
Yeah, and you mentioned the play calling in Houston, and just before being let go, finally, Cal McNair got some braveness, I guess. Bill O'Brien had come out and said, we need to be more balanced with our attack. We need to run the ball more. And, you're like, you have one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. What are you talking about? And before that game, he said that he was going to get more involved personally in the play calling. And we saw him use David Johnson to no effect. What I felt like, and what most fans probably felt like, was basically to prove that he didn't make a mistake by trading away DeAndre Hopkins or whatever. So I did not think that this move would be made because, as most people may or may not know, I don't know, he was also functioning as the general manager. Most people know that now, but I don't think a lot of people didn't realize that when they say Bill O'Brien should be fired. Well, that was a very difficult thing to do. Well, I guess finally they said, forget it. This really stinks. You're out. I find the timing a little interesting because it was 3 really tough matchups. And then, yes, they should have won Minnesota, but since they hadn't fired him so many times, like he made bad moves, trades as a general manager, he gave up draft picks. He lost a fantastic lead versus Kansas City, made poor play calling choices there. Like, what was it? Do you think it was the silly press conference where he got online and said, like, I need to run the ball more? I mean, why? I mean, don't get me wrong. I think
I don't know.
Timing.
It doesn't make any sense. And no, a lot of people panned him, obviously, for trading DeAndre Hopkins. The team felt, apparently, that they weren't able to sign both Hopkins and Watson. They locked up Watson. If I'm picking between a receiver and a quarterback, I'm going to sign the quarterback long term. If that's ultimately what it ended up being, that's fine. But yeah, they mortgaged their future on trades. They got Tunsil last year, and there was a tweet out that I saw yesterday being like, yeah, it's all well and good that Houston's 0-4, but Miami owns their first and second round picks this year. So like, they're going to be a last place team with no way to benefit from it.
And congratulations, Miami, because Houston stinks so much. You might get like a number 5 pick.
Might get the number 1 pick. I expect them to. Again, this is supposed to be the easier part of their schedule coming up. They have Jacksonville and Tennessee the next 2 weeks. Those should be games that they can at least compete. I would think win, but they should have been able to beat Minnesota, and that didn't happen either. So it'll be interesting to see. They got Romeo Crennel now as their interim coach. He's going to be the oldest coach in the NFL, more of a defensive guy than an offensive guy. So they're going to have to find somebody, to call the plays. And I'm hoping now that it opens it up. I mean, Brandon Cooks had, I think it was 3 targets. He was on the field for 93% of the snaps, had 0 catches. He just locked into Will Fuller. Like, get more creative. Use these guys that you acquired. Use David Johnson in the passing game more. Only 3 targets in these last 2 games. He's a really great pass catcher. He's catching the ball when it's thrown to them. Design more plays to get him involved and open the offense up because, running the ball up the middle on these defenses isn't going to really work. Maybe it'll work for Jacksonville and Tennessee because teams are running all over them. Joe Mixon, welcome to the NFL, last week, running all over Jacksonville. So maybe it's time they'll get opened up, but a coaching change is definitely needed.
Certainly David Johnson, if he's going to have a good week, it should be this week. And certainly Will Fuller, Randall Cobb should have a great week this week. These are all the things that should happen.
Should happen, yeah.
But
Watson's a good quarterback. So, I don't understand really where the struggles are. The offensive line, they definitely need help there. They've been getting to him a lot, and he's been having to scramble around. But something isn't working, and hopefully this change will make it click. According to reports, a lot of people internally, a lot of the players internally were breathing a sigh of relief. Now that O'Brien's not there, so we'll see.
I'm sure that's true. I've heard, because my family's in Houston, I've heard things about Bill O'Brien that I'm not allowed to repeat that make me think that yes, everybody's breathing a sigh of relief.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. Now let's talk about some waiver wire, because that's probably why you guys tuned in, and then we just got so excited talking about everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so biggest news probably the Austin Eckler injuries and the Nick Chubb injuries. So let's start with Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
Justin Jackson is someone I already had stashed in multiple leagues. Yeah. If he's still available, how much would you spend on Justin Jackson?
I just don't think
I'm assuming Josh Kelly's already off the table.
Yeah, Josh Kelly's definitely already off the waivers. I just don't think Justin Jackson's that good. That's my biggest problem with him. We've seen him have opportunity to produce before, and he wasn't capable of sustaining that. I don't know. Because he's going to be available, and the lack of running back depth, you're probably still looking 15 to 20% of your budget this week on him. I think Joshua Kelly's still going to be the guy that's going to get the at least initial work to get the early down carries. Now, he didn't look good last week, but neither did Jackson. Jackson didn't really show out in his opportunities either. In that game with 6 carries for only 9 yards. So it's not as if he ran well against Tampa, but you're going to have to claim him, and you're going to have to hope something happens there. But neither of the two bring to the skill set that Austin Eckler has out of the backfield catching the football. So I'm kind of curious, who else gets called up, who gets added, if somebody gets signed by the Chargers here, maybe that could sort of fill in as that third down pass catcher and see what happens there. Because I don't know, it seems like they'll have to change their offense a little bit more if they're just going to take out the check downs to the running back, because that's a big part, I think, of Herbert's comfortability there as well.
Well, assuming they're staying with Herbert, which they should, but they haven't officially committed to their very talented new quarterback. But anyway, we have an article over on Fantasy Alarm by Dan Malin, which is awesome, which outlines a whole bunch of these waiver wire choices, by the way. So if you want to check in with that, if you miss anything we say, be sure you check in on that. He has listed here Chase Edmonds, and this is a problem for me. I love Chase Edmonds as a pick. I picked him as the handcuff of the year. But I forget that in some leagues, people like Chase Edmonds are available, because he's certainly not available in any league I play in. If Chase Edmonds is available, he's got to be the top target right now, right?
Yeah, Edmonds is going to be available probably in 10-team leagues. Maybe some 12 teams, but probably unlikely at this point.
That's what I was thinking.
But yeah, I mean, Kingsbury said in the beginning of the year that they felt like Edmonds had NFL starter caliber talent. I still think Drake, barring, any severe injury, from what I saw, it wasn't anything major that he was going through. Have you seen any updates on Drake's injury status at all?
No, I haven't. But the way that he was playing yesterday, it's like he had opportunity. There were ways for him to be there, and he just wasn't, which makes me wonder if whatever had him in a boot at the beginning of the season, it's still affecting it.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense.
I feel the same way. My biggest problem with Drake coming into the year, was the fact that, the offensive line for the large part last year with Arizona was still awful. And yeah, Drake came in and brought a spark, and clearly David Johnson was dealing with a little bit of something. But I felt like it was unreasonable to think that Drake was just going to be this like end of the first round talent all of a sudden in an offense that wants to throw. They went out and acquired DeAndre Hopkins to throw the football downfield. It's the air raid offense. I just didn't feel like Drake was going to fit into that as much. And then we got into the year and Kyler Murray is running all these touchdowns in, and Drake's not getting any of the red zone work. So I was kind of out on him. This is a situation where if he plays this week, you're hoping against, his next upcoming matchups, which are fantastic for him. He has the Jets and Dallas, Seattle. Like all of these next games are teams that are just scoring a ton of points. You're hopeful that he can come through for you. I don't know if you can confidently start Chase Edmonds this week. You're maybe as a flex play because you don't really know what the workload is going to be. And even then, Drake still dominated a lot of the snap count. So, it'll be interesting to watch, but the opportunity is seemingly slipping away from him and moving in Edwards' direction.
So if you're the Chubb owner, there's no chance you're getting Kareem Hunt. So should you put a bid on Ernest Johnson? He did lead the team in carries with 13. He had 95 yards. And it does seem like they like to use two running backs, that's their scheme. And I don't know that Kareem Hunt necessarily is the handcuff for Nick Chubb. Maybe he is the change of pace back. So I think there could be some value into Ernest Johnson. I mean, certainly Hunt is the one to roster if you have a choice. But if you don't, is there value into Ernest Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the guy that you're going to have to at least lean towards. There was actually kind of a split in terms of snap counts between the secondary backs there. With the Browns in that game. Ernest Johnson had 23% of the offensive snaps, but we also saw Dontrell Hilliard play 20% of the offensive snaps. Now, Ernest obviously was a more productive back, 13 for 95. Hilliard only had 5 for 19. But I'm expecting this to be like a 70% lean in terms of snaps for Kareem Hunt. The reason why I was taking Kareem Hunt in all the leagues that I could wasn't just because, he was an elite handcuff, but he had this standalone value anyhow. Exactly. So, for me, I'm looking at this game and now assuming that Hunt is going to be the every down back with the occasional change of pace play from a guy like Ernest Johnson. I know Johnson led the backfield in carries, but it seems crazy to me to think that they won't lean on Hunt a little bit more than we saw, over the first couple of weeks as his timeshare with Chubb, because, Hunt was a top 5 running back when given the full workload. So Johnson, definitely put your money in. Maybe Hilliard is a deep cut play for you if you miss out on Ernest, based off the snap share. But I think this is Hunt's backfield.
News coming in this morning is that O.J. Howard will be out for the season with an Achilles injury. Is there any value in maybe taking a shot on Cameron Brate? He got into the end zone this week. We've seen Gronk. Does seem Gronk really was just brought there to block because he's not being used as a receiver. Should we consider targeting Cameron Brate? And actually, there's quite a few tight ends I'd like to quickly touch on, even though we're getting close on time. But what about Cameron Brate?
Brate's has always been a decent little red zone guy. If you look at over his career, he had 8 touchdowns in 2016, 6 in 2017 and 2018. So he's not, unaccustomed to being a pass catching tight end. I always felt that he was just a better blocker of the two, which is why Howard was the receiver. But yeah, if there's something where all of a sudden Gronk is now more of the blocking tight end than the pass catching tight end, maybe you take a look at Bray. But again, he only has 2 targets on the year. It's not as if he was all of a sudden a huge piece of that offense. The one thing I have to worry about now is Mike Evans missed practice today with an injury. You already know Godwin's out with the concussion. I think Scotty Miller's still dealing with something as well. So as bodies drop there in Tampa Bay, yeah, a guy like Bray could rise, and they were running 12 formation anyway, so 2 tight ends were always on the field. Again, maybe a little dart throw if you need a tight end. Bray could be someone to pick up and put on your bench, but not someone I would say you pick up and start.
Quite a few tight ends still on the wire. I noticed that. I can't believe it. Mo Alley Cox, who I think we now must admit is a piece of that offense. Phillip Rivers likes him. Dalton Schultz. I don't know why anyone would still be sleeping on this guy. He's everything we thought Blake Jarwin would be, maybe more, because I don't think we thought the Cowboys defense would be this bad and Dak would have to throw this many times, which is also giving a bump to CeeDee Lamb, who's still very affordable in DFS, by the way. Eric Ebron has absolutely a smash matchup this week versus Philadelphia that has absolutely given away all the points they possibly can to the tight end position. And in a lot of leagues, Evan Ingram has been dropped. If that is the case, follow my instructions. Go to your waiver wire, put in a bid on Evan Ingram.
Start him on Sunday. On Evan Ingram, if I was you. This is the one thing that we talked a lot about this year was how bad the start of the season schedule is for the Giants. They ran through Pittsburgh, Chicago, San Francisco, and the Rams. And Andrew Cooper put it best on Twitter when someone was sort of arguing back and forth with him about Evan Ingram and his success. And Cooper pretty much put it simply, tell me who the top defenses were drafted in your fantasy league this year. And the guy's like, well, what does that have to do with it? Tell me who the top defenses were. And he listed them down. It was everybody that the Giants have played already, minus the Ravens, right? So now they have the easier part of their schedule. Dallas, Washington, Philadelphia, all coming up. We know how easy they're going to end up having. So you already went through the hardest part of the schedule for the Giants. He had 10 targets last week. So the yardage isn't there. But, I mean, he is getting looked at. He's getting thrown to. As this opens up, and the competition becomes much easier for the Giants, Evan Ingram's going to have a huge, in my opinion, second half, you just based off volume. So I agree with you. If he's on your waiver wire, I would put a big on him. Tight end, there are a few guys that are game changers, and Ingram's one of them.
Yeah, I agree. And Dallas has given up the 5th most points at the position so far this year. It's an absolute smash luck. I hate to say it as a Cowboys fan, but it's time to start targeting players versus the Dallas defense until they make some kind of a major change. Jordan Akins, someone else you can stream. I know people like to stream tight ends. That's why I wanted to go over this. Jonnu Smith, I'm sure he's not available. Dawson Knox, possibly this week as well.
I want to throw one name at you and let me know what you think. And maybe fantasy owners are going to cringe when I say this, but he was taken off IR, and you already mentioned Mo Alley Cox, but Trey Burton made his debut for the Colts. He had 5 targets. He played more snaps than Mo Alley Cox did, and he was more involved in the passing game than Jack Doyle. He had 5 targets, 2 catches, only 16 yards. Wasn't a great jump out debut, but the fact that he led the team in targets at the tight end position, the fact that he's had success in this offense before when he was part of the Eagles, there was a reason Burton got that contract in Chicago, was because they used him in Philadelphia with Reich here. As that number 2 tight end, pass catching tight end. I think Burton could be a little sneaky grab if you're in a really deep league and need somebody, at the tight end position, because he's going to basically be their slot tight end. That's what he's going to be out there playing. He doesn't block. It's purely a pass catcher. He was somebody that I was actually taking in a lot of late best ball drafts, and then he got hurt and got put on IR, and I was kind of kicking myself. But, the fact that he saw 50% of the offensive snaps and got 5 targets kind of jumped out to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Another player for this week, guys, is Eric Ebron. I said that already, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. I like Eric.
I did. Okay, never mind. Eric Ebron. So we're over time already, and I have so much more to say. But I guess the good news is I'm going to be making a DFS bargains video for you guys. I found a lot already. It's hard to even pare it down. It's pretty exciting. And Jon is going to do a contrarian video for you. And those are the videos you want to look at when you're trying to put together lineups to win tournament play. Not so much for cash games necessarily. I mean, the bargains you can use in your cash games, but especially the contrarian video that Jon puts out every Friday.
We've had all success with both videos these last 2 weeks. So we had DJ Chark last week at 2% owned. We had Dalvin Cook the week before that at I think it was under 8% owned. So the contrarian corner video, and then obviously your bargains have been fantastic also. So definitely check them out. They're free too. They're not even behind the paywall. So gotta give them a look.
Deep Cuts video also coming out on Friday. We had 2 touchdowns from that video. We've had touchdowns every single week from the Deep Cuts video. And those are guys that we were literally giving you that are so deep, you can just go pick them up for free the morning of, and no one's even going to notice you took them. So those things are all free. You don't have to pay. Of course, we want you to be a paying member of Fantasy Alarm family and get all the super, super duper tools where we help you set your lineups and all of that. And you can get that over at fantasyalarm.com, where you get 24/7 chat with experts such as Jon and Pimba, Justin Breland, Dan Malin, Matt Sells, Ryan Hallam, James Grande. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Sean Mitchell basically lives in chat.
Sean Mitchell, Andrew Cooper's over there. I mean, like, you guys, you can't get better access to anything than this. So check it out, fantasyalarm.com. In the meantime, Jon and Pimba and I are available for you on Twitter. I will be back Thursday night at 7 p.m. with none other than the Adam Rodas. We will take all your start-sit questions for week 5, and then again Sunday morning, 11 a.m. with Howard Bender. In the meantime, I don't know, guys, go make some bids.
Yeah, go make some bids.
Go make some bids. We'll see you next time.